Hello everybody and welcome back to the Eternal Ride. Here we are, we're already at the National Reining Breeders' Classic here in Tulsa. It seems like the year's flying by already and we're already jumping into major events and I'm telling you, there's never been a better time to be in the reining horse industry. We have so many great horse shows to be able to go to and the purses are better than they've ever been and it's really an exciting time to be a part of this industry as a whole, but I'm telling you, there's some dangers involved with it as well, and I want to talk to you a little bit about that today. I've read the parable of the sower in Matthew. I don't know how many hundreds of times in my lifetime, and I've always read it a certain way, and I want to read it to you today and hopefully be able to bring it from a little bit of a different perspective. But this parable is whenever it's Jesus, he taught many times in parables, and he would kind of tell a story, and you almost had to read between the lines a little bit. And actually, in this particular situation, his apostles kind of questioned him about it a little bit, asking him why he's always speaking in parables. But then he goes on to explain the parable, and we're not going to get into a lot of detail about his interaction with his apostles, but I would like to talk about the parable itself and then how he explains it, and hopefully be able to make some application to us. I know the reason that I'm bringing this today is because I feel like this is something that's really affecting me right now, and a lot of times, I'm stepping on my own toes anytime that I'm bringing a message. So I wanted to start off here in Matthew chapter 13 and verse 3. It says, "Then he told them many things in parables, saying, a farmer went out to sow his seed, and as he was scattering the seed, some fell along the path, and the birds came and ate it up. And some fell on rocky places where it did not have much soil, and it sprang up quickly, but the soil was shallow. And when the sun came up, the plants were scorched, and they withered because they had no root. And other seed fell among the thorns, which grew up and choked the plants, and still other seed fell along the good soil, where it produced a crop, 100, 60, or 30 times what was sown. And whoever has ears, let him hear." And what he's talking about here is he's talking about whenever we go out and we spread the gospel. And we're going out and we're trying to bring the good news to people around us. And there are different types of people that are out there. There are the people that, they're never going to take the word. There's never going to be, the soil just isn't right for them to follow Christ for whatever reason. He gives a few different examples there. But then when we find that person that the soil is right, meaning that their heart is right, they're ready to accept God's message, they're ready to obey the gospel, then they can go out and they can produce a crop. And what it means by producing a crop, if you're a follower of Christ, one of the first things that we're commanded to do is go out and make disciples. We're commanded. That's one of the last things that Jesus said before he ascended up into heaven, after he had given his life on the cross. Before he ascended to heaven, he talked about go out and make disciples of all nations. That was a commandment that he gave us. And so whenever it talks about the people that are the good soil and their heart is right, and they're going to produce a crop because they're going to go out and they're going to make disciples. And so whenever we're preaching the gospel, whenever we're sharing the good news to our friends and those people that are around us, we're going to come across all different people at different stages in their life, different heart conditions, and it really takes somebody that is open-minded and their heart is right to be ready to accept the gospel. And sometimes people are in all four different stages throughout their lifetime, and sooner or later, if you keep being positive, you keep loving your neighbor, and you keep building them up, eventually many of them will come to know Christ. Their heart will become right at some point in time. But I want to look at how Jesus explains this parable. His disciples, they asked him, why are you always speaking in parables? And he explains this to them. He said, listen to what the parable of the sower means. This is in verse 18. "When anyone hears the message about the kingdom and does not understand it, the evil one comes and snatches away what was sown in their heart. This is the seed that was sown along the path." So you have somebody that they just don't get it. They don't get what Christ brings. They don't understand the necessity of following Christ in order to receive eternal life. Christ says, "I'm the way, the truth, and the life, and no one comes to the Father except through me." we have to be willing to follow Christ. And these people that just don't get it, they don't understand it, it doesn't have enough meaning to them, it's not urgent enough to them, then those seeds get snatched right away. In verse 20 it says, the seed falling on rocky ground refers to someone who hears the word and at once receives it with joy. But since they have no root, they last only a short time. And when trouble or persecution comes because of the word, they quickly fall away. And I've seen this so many times. You know, over the years when we spent a decade in youth ministry, there were so many kids that whenever they would first come to Bible class, they'd first start hearing the good news about Christ, they would jump all in, you know, fully jump in and commit to the best of their ability at that time. But then they would let you know, the different things in life just distract them and keep them away. And whenever persecution would come, they would be gone. And some of them would come back later down the road, and some of them just never come back to Christ at all. And that's what he's referring to right here. They have no root, you know, so they last only a short time. In verse 22 it says, the seed falling among the thorns refers to someone who hears the word, but the worries of life and the deceitfulness of wealth choke the word, making it unfruitful. And I want you to look at this from a little bit of a different perspective. Maybe you already have, but the way that I've always looked at this is for new converts, for people that are just hearing about the word for the first time. And I hear about this one where the seed falling among the thorns, and they hear the word, but the worries of this life and deceitfulness of wealth choke the word, making it unfruitful. My fear is that the same thing can happen to people like myself who have been followers of Christ most of our lifetime. You know, for me, well over 20 years of what I feel like I've been obeying, and I feel like I've been following Christ, and I feel like I've been striving to do better each and every day. But I look at this particular verse, the worries of this life and the deceitfulness of wealth choke the word, making it unfruitful. And I talked about to you at the beginning of this about how awesome it is to be in our industry right now, in the sport of reining. We have major event shows every month of the year, pretty much. And some of the months we have multiple ones in there, and we are going 100 miles an hour. And we have you know, kind of a competition now with the American Performance Horsemen, to where we're striving to be in the top 5 money earners for the year to get qualified for that. So if there's an extra show out there, a lot of us used to skip in the past, now we're going to those shows, trying to make sure that we give ourselves every opportunity, you know, to have the opportunity to get qualified for these major events. And I'm telling you, it's really, really a challenge not to let the worries of this life and the deceitfulness of wealth choke out the word and make us unfruitful. If we are so focused on making a living, if we are so focused on being successful in whatever field that we're in, that we aren't putting the time and effort into our walk with the Lord, then we stand a chance of being unfruitful. And that's not what we're called to be as followers of Christ. He wants us to produce crops. He wants us to be this person that the seed fell among the good soil in verse 23. And he says it refers to someone who hears the word and understands it. First of all, they understand it, not like that person that fell on the path. And the next thing is that this one is the one that produces a crop yielding 100, 60, or 30 times what was sown. See, that's what we're called to do. When we're followers of Christ, we're called to have to be putting so much effort into our walk with the Lord that everybody around us sees it and they're drawn to that. Not only that, but we're called to share that gospel to people that we're around each and every day. And each and every day we take up our cross and follow Jesus. And by doing that, part of that is sharing the gospel. Part of that is growing God's kingdom. And that's how we produce a crop 100, 60, and 30 times what was sown our direction. So my prayer for you is this: keep an eye out. Look at yourself inwardly and see, am I fully devoted to the Lord, or am I letting the worries of life choke out my relationship with God? Am I letting the worries of life keep me from being fruitful in His kingdom? And if that's the case, maybe you need to make some changes in your life. I know that that's why I'm talking about it. It's because I feel like that could be where I'm at right now, and I need to start making some changes in my life. And I pray that we can do this together. I know that being a follower of Christ is not always easy, but the reward is well worth it when our time's through on this earth. I pray that this has been a benefit to you, and until next time, I hope you're blessed in all that you do.